Welcome to my show simply entitled Women Influencers. I am Veronica CCIM, founder and CEO of Capstack Commercial, a commercial real estate company serving the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Christy Gessler from the great state of Texas. Prior to becoming a Realtor and the 2025 chairman of the Texas Realtors, she had a career in law enforcement where the pressures drove her to alcoholism. Her journey to sobriety and her inspiring message is truly amazing. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hello, Christy. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you, Veronica. How are you?
I am great. Summer's here. The heat is just intense. And you are not from Florida. Which state are you from? I said Texas.
I am from the great state of Texas. I hail from Central Texas.
That's awesome. Texas is wonderful. I have friends and family there. Well, I want to, if you don't mind, I just want to dive right in. And I firstly want to say thank you for sharing your story here in our podcast. And if you don't mind, I am dying to hear your story. So tell us about how you grew up in your environment and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So thank you. And thank you again for having me. So I grew up in the Midwest. Actually, I was born of an Air Force father, and service was always in my blood, being a servant. He was a business owner, and being a business owner was also then in my blood. And so I landed at the University of Texas to go to school. That's why I'm still here in Central Texas. And through that process, I needed to get a job. It was pretty challenging. And I luckily found a job with Travis County. And through that, I became the first female deputized park ranger for Travis County, which was exciting at the time because that department for our county, which is around the Austin, Texas market, was just developing its core of emergency response within parks, how to take care of guests, how to obviously keep the peace, and how to protect our natural resources. And so that spoke to me, that spoke to what I was studying at school. And so I pursued that and did that for 7 years and had a beautiful career with Travis County. I retired from Travis County to have my two boys.
And just for context, how
Yeah.
many years ago was that?
So I served from 1990 to 1997. So yes, it's been a minute. I was thinking back to some of the things. I was on duty the day of the Oklahoma City bombing in Oklahoma City. So that puts perspective kind of how long ago it's been. Yes, my kids are now grown. And that was like I said, in 1997 is when I left the police force to raise my boys. And after that, I found myself inspired by real estate. I know a lot of people say that, and a lot of people find real estate as a second career, but for me, it was a progression in my career because it was helping people in a different way, a little safer, not always being shot at or beat up, and being able to help them achieve the American dream of home ownership. That got me. So that's where I found myself then becoming a real estate broker, and here I am today. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, and from my understanding, at least from our conversations in the past, you also served as a deputy sheriff.
Yep. That's right. So through the Parks Department, they decided that they needed us to be licensed and commissioned peace officers. So part of that was to do that training. So I was deputized by Sheriff Terry Keel. And so in that role, I was a fully deputized sheriff. My jurisdiction or my district or whatever you might like to call it just involves some really pretty places around Austin. I got to be out on Lake Travis in some nature preserves, keeping the peace and making sure nobody did anything nefarious, but it sure was a beautiful office to have, that's for sure. So it kept my love of the land, which parlays into real estate also. So it was a great place to be doing that, to be serving in that way, but to be out in the wild world. I loved that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the outdoors too. I mean, not quite had an opportunity to be there all day or just, enjoying the park. I know you were working, but I'm sure it was just beautiful. And I can
It
just
really was.
imagine, yeah, and I can just imagine how wonderful that must have been. Although I can also imagine that you probably had a lot of challenges that go with that. And so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my top challenges was feeling good enough, feeling like I could fit in, feeling like I could perform, especially as a small statured female. I was very nervous about my ability to keep up with the boys and to keep up in an environment that is dangerous. And that weighed on me quite a lot. So whereas I found a great gift in being presented with this opportunity, kind of falling into my lap, if nothing else, I was working in the parks and was able to get this promotion. And so, but it created a lot of pressure, and it created a lot of pressure to perform when not only your life is on the line, but your partner and your fellow officers' lives are on the line. So it definitely made me very conscious of all of my actions. And sometimes that can be good, and then sometimes that can be a little hard when the pressure gets a little tough.
Well, I totally appreciate what you just shared with us just right now, and I know that you did speak about a better career in real estate, and I know
Yep.
you were also a podcaster. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I do. So, unfortunately, I think that in response to many stresses in our world, many times we make some bad choices. And I can speak from experience with the police force that they are known for having various issues in their personal lives as a result of what they're doing professionally. So I succumbed to a little bit of that. I found myself actually becoming quite a serious alcoholic and didn't really realize it, honestly. Some of the mechanisms that I was using were definitely a bad one. But I was your challenge, like you say, I was trying to always feel like I lived up. And sometimes if you feel like you're letting others down, it can be very demoralizing. Um, and so that was a hard lesson to get through that took me a lot of years to recognize what I was doing, first of all, not overcoming that challenge with healthy responses. And I needed to look inward. So the podcast allowed me a little therapy to look inward and to express some of my anxieties about pressure to perform and the pressure to always be number one and to win at everything. And, in those worlds of law enforcement, you do have to win because it's serious, but that can create overlap into your other areas of your life. So my podcast called The Dependent Agent was a way for me to therapeutically talk about some of my stresses and get a few things out there and see if I could connect with some people.
Sure,
And
and I'm sure that it not only connected with other people, it probably helped a few people, if
yeah,
not many. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that and how you overcame that battle with alcoholism.
yep,
Aside from the podcast, what were the other things that you had to do to be able to overcome it? And I know you've spoken about self awareness first, and the
yep,
admission that it is an issue. So
yep.
please share with us.
You bet. It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to see that in others or to maybe make some outcries and not respond. And so I thought if I could come at a place of contribution where I want people to understand that sometimes a person experiencing addiction really, really does need someone to reach out to them and take them by the hand and take them to help. Because that's what happened to me. I was home one day. I should have been at the office. I had been drinking. I knew I couldn't go to the office. I had two friends come to my front door and say, "Christy, we're taking you to the hospital." And they did. And that's the day, November 8th of 2017 is what started my journey that day in the hospital. And those friends taking that step to take me there was really what I needed. So my outreach through the podcast was to say, it's okay not to be okay, but let's ask each other more often. Let's come at each other with more empathy and try to maybe be that hand that somebody needs because I needed it and it saved me.
Well, that's beautiful. And I must say that the way that you just articulated that is very touching to me because
Thank
it's
you.
not just about your own predicament, but it's also looking outward to see if others are in the same place as you. And so, therefore, being more aware of the fact that others are in need. So, I truly appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about influence. And since we're talking about your podcast, and perhaps not, I mean, it doesn't have to be about your challenge and the podcast. But if there was one outcome that you are most proud of because you've influenced it, what would that be?
So her name is Connie. She's from New York State. She had listened to the podcast, and she is just one that was brave enough to reach back out and say, I'm experiencing the same thing. I really want to stop my bad behavior. Will you hold my hand a little bit, even though you're in Texas and I'm in New York? Can you hold my hand? And I said, I've got you. This is even pandemic years. I've got you. We can lock arms virtually, still be there for each other. So that there was enough reward for anything. And we keep in touch. And she has passed now her 3-year sobriety mark and is living life to the fullest. And so this is when social media is beautiful because I see her doing well, traveling, and I know the backstory. And that's what is just, well, talk about make your heart swell. That's a good
Oh,
one.
wow, it is. It is
Yeah.
fantastic. And if you
Yeah.
don't mind me asking, how many years have you been sober?
So November of 2017 is my sober date. So that is now, gosh, almost coming up on 7 years, which is terrific. It's a daily battle in my business and in my industry in real estate. It's still kind of a boozy one in certain ways. And I'm also influencing that just a little bit in my volunteerism, encouraging less boozy activities and more fun experiences for all. We can be super inclusive and it's super fun. So yeah, it's a challenge always, but it's one that when I realize the healthy side of it, I like the healthy side a lot better. So
Yeah,
it
I,
becomes an easier choice then.
I totally agree. And
Yeah.
just for the sake of our audience, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that you are a leader in the real estate organization, the Realtor organization at the
Yeah.
National Association of Realtors, and I'm quite sure at your state association in Texas, and of course your local association.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
hearing you say all this, and I will agree, I'm in real estate too. So I do agree that it's a very boozy sort of industry, which I think we're carefully now understanding that it may not be such a good thing
Right.
for many reasons, not just because of alcohol, but for other behaviors that probably
Mm-hmm.
would have ensued from a boozy atmosphere. So I do
Yeah.
appreciate your volunteer work and the influence that you have on not just the realtor organization, but the greater community at that.
Thank
So
you.
if there was one piece of advice, Christy, that you could give to our audience today, what would that be?
I would say come first with kindness. Whenever you're dealing with anyone, right now, I think in our general society and culture, it's more important than ever. We're very divided. We have our own internal struggles in our industry, as our profession. We have a lot of chaos in the political world. We have a lot of chaos just in the world. We have a kind of chaotic natural environment as well. Being down here in Texas, keeping an eye on a hurricane. I think we just need to come at each other with more kindness and empathy. I think doing that opens up a lot. Greeting each other with a smile first is so powerful. Even if we're not feeling like a smile, it helps you too. So I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that so much. Let me tell you a little story, just to
Please.
interject. This morning, I went to the car wash, right? Those machines and stuff, and usually you are greeted by someone who will tell you to move your wheel this way or that, and so that you can get on. And this guy had this big smile on his face, and I thought to myself, boy, doesn't that really make such a difference? I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
there and I'm probably going to see him for about a few seconds. And yet, that smile actually just generated this positive energy in me. And I even rolled down my window and I said, "Thank you for that smile." And he even smiled even larger. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate what you just said. I think it is something that we would easily forget because we have
Yeah.
our own stresses. It's a chaotic world. But yes, you are right.
Goes a
Even just a
long
little,
way.
it does go a long way.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I think that we're at that part of our interview where I get to pass on the mic to you, and you
Great.
have a question for me. So I can't wait to.
I do, and thank you for this opportunity. And yes, it's a tough world out there, but if we're brave together, we're good. I have a bracelet I love to wear that she who is brave is free. So I think that's exciting. But I would just like to ask you your big why. What drives you to do what you do? We so benefit from your talents here on the podcast. What drives you here? So
Well,
love
that's
to
a very
know.
good. That's a great question, and thank you, of course, for asking that question. It's probably the first time that somebody had asked me this question, so it made me pause for a minute. But I will tell you that my why is whoever is out there on the other side of the podcast. And I say that because I've already shared the story of how my young 21-year-old daughter had some visits from her girlfriends who shared with me that they don't have anything that they can pull up from the internet with regards to women and to be motivated as young women, because we do have challenges that are unique to men. And I don't care what people say, men and women, they're equal. We're not. We're not the same. And so my why for the podcast is really to be able to share stories like yours. People like you are so very encouraging, so very inspiring. And I thought, you know what, if I can bring the most influential and most successful women on this show, be able to just share your story, someone out there who is just maybe at a time where they needed to hear you say that kindness is is very important, that it would have influenced an outcome for them. I think that is my why. And so I really just appreciate that you are here today, Christy, and that
Thank
you have
you.
taken the time to share your so stirring and so inspiring story of
Thank you.
overcoming your challenge. I do appreciate that so much. And if you have some parting words, please share with us like now.
I would say, yep, ladies out there, we can do it. It is a hard world, but everyone does bring value. Everyone is important. I never thought I'd be looking at being able to be the chairman of Texas Realtors next year, but I am there, and I can influence change and have a voice. Use your voice. Your voice matters, and remember, it's more important about the windshield than the rearview mirror.
I
That would be
love
my
that.
parting words.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, Christy, it's going to be the 4th of July weekend
Yay!
and it's extended. And so I wish you the very best, the safest, and the happiest of the 4th of July weekend for you and your family. And I want to thank you today for sharing your story.
Thank you, Veronica, and same to you. Thank you very much.